She lives in.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Raylyn, also known as Raw Fizzle, and I am back with another reading video. So today we will be discussing my March 2025 reading wrap-up. And instead of doing the 5-star scale system like I did in the last wrap-up, I'm actually gonna do a yes, no, or maybe edition for this month's wrap-up. So stay tuned for that. Before we begin, we're gonna get into some of the stats. And if you see me looking down, it's because I've got my notes right here to keep me grounded and on topic. So for the month of February, I read a total of 17 books. If you haven't seen that reading wrap up, be sure to check that out. It should be up in the cards and down in the description box below. For the month of March, I read a total of 11 books and I DNF'd 1 book, which is a pretty big thing for me because I don't typically DNF books, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Bringing my total progress up to 40 books out of the 150 book goal that I have for this year. I think I'm off to a pretty good start, even though March was a slower month compared to January and February. So the first book of the month was The View by Untamed. I gave this book a maybe. It's about a husband and a wife, and they both have completely different goals for the future of their relationship. The wife is very career driven, so she is focused on getting a promotion and performing well at her job, and having children might be a goal of hers at some point, but it's not at the forefront of her mind. And her husband, on the other hand, he's ready to start a family, he's expecting children, and they end up having a conversation where some truth is revealed and it ends up just snowballing into other issues, which eventually lead to infidelity. And I'm just gonna kind of leave it at that. It's a little messy. I gave it the maybe rating because it was just okay. It wasn't a bad book, but it wasn't the greatest book. It has a part 2, which I'm personally not interested in reading, but the book was decent for what it was. I listened to it while I was playing The Sims, so it kept me entertained enough, but it is messy. I will give it that. For number 2, we have Control by Omar Tyree. I gave this book a maybe rating as well. It's about 6 toxic personalities in the ATL entertainment industry that push their psychologist to her limits. The book is classified as a psychological thriller, and it's a pretty decent book. This is the second book that I read by Omar Tyree, the first one being Fly Girl, which I read earlier in the year and I talked about in previous videos. Control actually came out, I want to say May, like summer of last year. Control is a newer book, so I don't really know how I feel about it. I kind of feel a little bit indifferent about it. There's a lot going on in this book, and once I got towards the end, I felt like we had an unreliable narrator because I didn't know what was real and what was fake. So as I was reading the book and following along with it, I was like, okay, this is a little questionable, but you know, I'm chucking along with it. And then when you get to the end, it's like the ending was just kind of thrown at you. And even though there was buildup, with the type of ending that you're thrown into, I felt like there wasn't a lot of follow-up or background or just enough to really tie it all in together. It kind of just felt like, here, damn. I honestly feel like there are parts of the story that were a little overdeveloped and underdeveloped. It could have been executed a little better, so I give it a maybe. It's not a horrible book, but it's definitely not the best psychological thriller that I've read in my lifetime. For book number 3, we have Anywhere You Run by Wanda M. Morris. Anywhere You Run by Wanda M. Morris was a yes for me, so I had to go get my physical trophy and get this book on my shelf. Anywhere You Run is about 2 sisters, Violet and Marigold, who live in Jackson, Mississippi in the Jim Crow era. Violet is currently on the run for killing a white man. Marigold has dreams of going to law school, and she's a big advocate in the city for getting Black people the right to vote as well as other rights of equality. And in the midst of doing that, she does end up getting pregnant, and she is unmarried. So both of these sisters are dealing with their own secrets and their own issues, which they do not divulge to each other at the beginning of the story. And they end up running in opposite directions across the country, trying to run from their past, their secrets, and the consequences of their actions, but ultimately they all still catch up to them in some way. I really love listening to this book. The narration was perfect, and it really hit home for me because I'm a Mississippi resident and I spent a significant part of my life growing up in Mississippi. I did not grow up around the Jim Crow era, but even though I did not grow up around that time, I don't feel like we are as far removed from that point in history as we like to make ourselves seem. So it really hit home for me. There were moments where I would have to pause the story, whether I was in the grocery store or I was out at the library, because some of the scenes and some of the experiences that the characters had dealt with were just so real and so touching that I just had to take a moment to just pause and really process everything that is just transpiring in this story. But it is a beautiful story. Whenever I get attached to a storyline, whenever I get attached to characters, I cry. And I cried listening to this book. I loved it. This has to be my favorite Wanda M. Morris book so far. I also have All Her Little Secrets, but I feel like this tops that for sure. Absolutely love this book. Highly recommend if you're into historical fiction. I used to be a fantasy girl, but I think I'm low-key becoming a historical fiction girl, because historical fiction is where it's at. I feel like the stories are always so well developed. They're so intricate. I love the way that they tie into each other. And the main thing that I've noticed when it comes to Black historical fiction is the constant emphasis on community. And I absolutely love that. Yes. This is a yes. A hell yes. Yes. For number 4, we have The Secret Lives of Baba Segi's Wives by Lola Shonayan. I hope I'm saying that correctly. If I'm not, please don't hold it against me. Baba Segi is married to 4 different women, 3 of which who have given him children. His 4th wife is the youngest wife, and she is also a college-educated wife, which makes her stand out from the rest. And because she is so educated, it ruffles the feathers of the other wives. And since he has children from the previous 3 wives, he is failing to conceive with this 4th wife, and that failure puts everyone's lives and their secrets at risk of exposure. So this book is very entertaining, very insightful. I read the book about 2 years ago, so this was a reread for me, and it just hit different the second time around. I gave it 5 stars years ago, and it's still 5 stars now. When I was reading it, it was my birthday week, and I went to an event with one of my friends, and I was telling her about it, and she asked me which of the wives that I resonated with the most. I resonated the most with Balonle, which is the 4th and youngest wife, the one with the college education, and a lot of her drive and her success was based on people pleasing. She had this desire to gain the approval of her parents, and marrying Baba Segi was against her parents' wishes. I don't want to say they disowned her, but they definitely looked down on her for doing that because they expected so much more from her. Like, you have a college degree, you should be off doing other things, better things than marrying some man that has 3 wives already. When it talks about her journey with trying to be accepted and just people pleasing, doing things to get the people around her to approve of her actions and her behavior, that really resonated with me, because I'm not really in a phase in my life right now where I'm a big people pleaser. But when I read this a few years ago and years before that, I definitely was. And especially when you are, I'm gonna say Black, even though they are African, and I know some people separate Black and African, but as a Black person, there's always so much pressure, especially as a woman, to exceed the standards and max out your education and just go all the way to the top. And we find ourselves pursuing that because that's what's expected of us. And sometimes we end up still feeling unfulfilled once we achieve those things, or we just end up chasing things because other people are going to approve of it or other people will like it, and not really for our own pleasure and satisfaction and fulfillment. But this book hits on a whole lot of stuff, and it is messy. There are some funny moments, there are some moments that are gonna make you shake your head, but I absolutely love this book, and I did read it, but I also recommend listening to the audiobook because the audiobook is good, okay? So we're gonna give that book a yes. For number 5, we have All Up in My Business by Letitia Lovely. This book gets the maybe rating. It follows the secrets and drama of a wealthy Black family that owns a successful chain of soul food restaurants in Atlanta. There is so much mess, so much drama in this book. It's kind of crazy. And this book follows so many different characters, because you're not just following 1 or 2 or 4 different family members. You're following the lives of the family members, the employees, everybody and their mama, okay? It's following everybody and their mama. But I can't be mad at it because they all tie into each other in some way. Like, all the different characters, all the different subplots, they all connect into a big web of mess. And at the beginning of the story, the family business, I believe, is at risk of bankruptcy. So they're trying to figure out what they're gonna do with that while also dealing with their personal drama, and it's a lot of it. I give it a maybe because, I mean, if you're into drama, I think it'll keep you hooked. It kinda has a Tyler Perry vibe to it, if you get what I'm saying. Number 6, we have Mind Your Own Business by Letitia Lovely. I gave this a maybe rating as well. This is book 2 in the Mind Your Business series, and it continues to follow the drama from the family, but they are flourishing in their business. They're no longer at risk of bankruptcy, and they are actually in the process of expanding to the West Coast. So it follows those family members that are involved in the expansion, as well as some other sub characters that are also involved in the situation. And it was okay. The romance fell flat. There were romantic elements, but there was a lot of lust. There was a lot of sex and a lack of personal development. And I feel like that hindered the cultivation of real genuine relationships in this book. For number 7, we have Taking Care of Business by Letitia Lovely, which I also gave a maybe. It might be, I don't even know what the name of the series is called, but this is the 3rd and final book in the series, and it continues to follow the drama in the family and their employees. And there were some storylines that were introduced in the 1st book that carried on into the 2nd and the 3rd that I feel like should have ended in the previous books, because there's multiple antagonists in the 1st book, but there's one particular antagonist that ends up snowballing into a cliffhanger into the 2nd book. So I can understand that person's relevance in the 2nd book, but that person is also relevant in the 3rd book, which I feel like was pushing it, because the duration of his madness, I feel like it just gave him way too much credit. And maybe it's me. Maybe I'm seeing him as too much of an underdeveloped, underqualified character, but it's just no way this man is this evil and conniving and just no. I feel like they could have replaced him with another villain. There are other antagonists in this series, but his storyline just continued for way too long. They should have ended it in book 2. Also, just like in the other books, the romance was lackluster. The men in this series, a lot of them, because they have money, they come from a position of power, and it didn't really feel like they loved their women. It was more so possession. We've been together this long, you got all this going on, you're my woman, I don't want anyone else to have you, and you just supposed to be down for whatever I say because I'm your man. Everyone would just be so horny, just so ready to rip each other's clothes off and bump skins, and the next thing you know, everyone's in love, but it's like, do y'all really know each other for real? Because I've noticed in books that are like just very lust based, or books that have romantic relationships that are based on lust or insta love, they don't really dive beneath the surface and start to dig a little deeper until they reach that point where it's miscommunication or some traumatic event that results in a 3rd act breakup, and then they want to start doing the work. Why wasn't you asking her about her history and her favorite color at the beginning? Why you wait till after you ready to walk out the relationship to start actually working on developing a real relationship outside of sex? Like, come on now. Come on now. We've got number 8, which is The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride, which I give an absolutely hell yes rating to. If you saw my last reading vlog, then you already know I'm in love with this book. This is my favorite book of the year so far. Definitely my favorite book of the month. I know we said we're not doing star ratings in this video, but 5 stars, not even 5 stars, 10 stars, a million stars. I love this book so much. Oh my goodness. But before I get into it, let me tell you about it. The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride follows the Black and Jewish residents of a community in Chicken Hill, which is located in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. In 1972, a skeleton is found at the bottom of the well, and the identity of that skeleton and how it got there is a kept secret within the community. And the main plot of the story is the backstory of basically how that skeleton got there. When the state comes to institutionalize a deaf Black boy named Dodo, the community members band together despite their differences to try to protect him from the state and also protect their secrets. In this book, there are a few, I can't even say a few main characters, because I feel like every character in this story was relevant. There are so many characters in this story because it pretty much covers everybody that lives in this community on Chicken Hill. It may seem like it's a lot at first. You're learning about Moshe and his wife, and then next thing you know, we're talking about all these other residents and their backstory, but I promise you it will all make sense in the end because they all tie into each other. You're not gonna get information on somebody and it's just like a filler, or a waste of your time information dump. It's all gonna make sense. Those key things that they're mentioning, like it's all gonna tie into something else. It's gonna kick in later on in the story. You're gonna be like, oh. I do understand how some people can struggle with reading James McBride's writing when it comes to a James McBride book. From what I've read so far, and I've only read 2, it starts off at the end. So in this book, it starts off with the discovery of that skeleton. The rest of the story pretty much explains how we got here. Sometimes with the way that he writes, if you're not familiar with his writing, it might be a little hard to get into, but I highly recommend listening to the audiobook, especially when you're reading historical fiction and it's not quite touching you in the way that you thought it would, or the story's not sticking to you. When you hear someone reading it to you, it plays out like a movie. I didn't find it hard to get into it while actually reading the book, but I loved listening to the audiobook. The narration was on point. I ranted and raved about this book in my last video, on all my social medias. Mind was blown. I knew the book was going to be good before I even hit the 50% mark. I knew it was going to be 5 stars. I got attached to the characters. I got attached to the plot, to the point to where like I'm crying. I'm trying to take my time with finishing it, but at the same time, like I'm so engulfed and enamored with the story that I don't want to stop, but I need to stop because I'm not ready to finish. And then once I finished, I cried because for one, dang, I'm done. This is it. Where do I go from here? What do I do with myself? I need more, but I'm probably not gonna get more. But also crying because like, damn, like these characters really went through a lot. And they still stood united front, despite their differences, despite that we got Jewish people and Black people and white people in this community, despite the fact that they are separated because of their race, because of their religion, because of their economic or social status. They are still banding together for a greater cause, to protect their own. I just love how historical fiction, and especially James McBride's writing, just really emphasizes the importance of community and kindness and generosity and compassion and principle. I just loved it. Anybody who asked me about this book, I told them about it. I even told my mom. And my mom read the book. And as she was reading it, she was texting me updates and she was telling me like, oh, this is so good and I'm not ready to be done yet. I'm so sad that I'm done. And I'm like, huh, I'm glad it's not just me. I see why they said this is one of the best books of 2023, because it absolutely is. I mean, it's 2025 and so far this is the best book of the year that I've read, and I had to go get the trophy. I had to get my hands on the signed edition. Please, I needed this. This is considered a classic in my household. I've said it before, I will say it again, I will continue to say it to anybody who needs to know. But I absolutely love the Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. 1,000,000 stars out of 5. Absolutely hell yes on the scale. For number 9, we have The Love Lyric by Christina Forrest. And this book I also rated a yes. If you're not familiar with The Love Lyric or Christina Forrest, she wrote the Green Sisters series. It's a romance series. The first book is The Neighbor Favor, which was kind of okay. Then we have The Partner Plot, which I absolutely loved. And we have The Love Lyric, which I also loved as well. The Love Lyric is about Iris, who is the oldest daughter, and she's so used to taking care of everybody and fixing everything while also dealing with the grief and the loss of her husband. And she ends up meeting Angel, an R&B singer, at her sister's wedding, who ends up becoming the face and the brand ambassador of the company that she works for. And they end up crossing paths again and sparks fly. I loved everything about this book. There was not a single thing that I would change. I love how it wasn't insta love, even though Angel was feeling my girl from the get-go. It wasn't like an insta love situation, and it wasn't heavily sex driven. Like, if anything, they really developed a relationship. They really got to know each other before they took things to the next level. I love how they took their time with this. And this story felt like a love letter for all of the oldest daughters out there. The things that Iris was dealing with and the positions that she was putting herself in, direct result of just always being the responsible one, always needing to be in control, but also people pleasing and putting yourself on the back burner because you're just too concerned with everybody else. Angel comes from a more conservative family that's really in the church. He starts off as a gospel singer and then he pivots into R&B, and his family is not feeling that at all. Like, they are just like, you and this secular music, like, you need to come back over to the right side. As a result of him just finally branching out from what he started with, he's learned more about himself and learned more about prioritizing himself, his happiness, his fulfillment. And I love how with his patience and even just like his probing questions, he really introduces that to Iris, who's just so used to being on go and in control. He introduces a sense of true like normalcy and peace into her life. And I love that. Like, oh, I love that. Yes. Yes, the love lyric, yes, 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 yes. I have to reread the partner plot just to see where it falls on my scale as far as the three of those books go. But if you want a good romance, a good Black romance with substance and true romantic personal growth, The Love Lyric by Christina Forrest is it. Number 10, we have A New Moon by Brandy Norwood. I give this a yes. And basically, Brandy reflects on her personal experiences, accomplishments, and trials, and how they shaped her into the global superstar that she is. It is an Audible exclusive Words Plus Music, and I love listening to the Words Plus Music stories on Audible because it really puts things into perspective for me. And it's one thing to listen to a person's music. It's another thing to listen to that after knowing what they were going through personally during the time that they were making it, or what was going through their mind when they were making that, or when they were in those moments. It just really brings a whole lot into perspective when you consume it again. For number 11, the final book of the month, we have Black Butler Volume 2 by Yana Taboso, and I give this a yes. Jack the Ripper is terrorizing London by stalking women and painting the town red. And as the Queen's guard dog, Seal Phantom Hive and his butler Sebastian embark on a journey to find this killer, and they end up facing some surprising truths in the process. I enjoyed reading this. I watched the anime, so I kind of already knew what was going to happen in this volume. I do feel like it was a little bit more detailed than the anime, so I did thoroughly enjoy this. If you're into manga and fantasy, I would say yes, but it does have some dark elements to it, so beware. And lastly, we have the book that I DNF'd, which is The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Souljah. I'm not gonna tell you what the book is about because honestly, I don't even know what the book is about. I read the synopsis like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I believe it's supposed to be following Winter, and her dad's a hustler. She grows up in the projects in New York, and then they end up making their way up, and then I think her father dies, and then it just follows her life after her father dies, and she's trying to put all the pieces together. I didn't even make it to the part where her father dies. I DNF'd the book at 15%. 75 pages in, I was just like, I can't do this no more because it was giving me a headache. She was a child, so I gotta give her some grace. You could tell that she was a child just by her thought process, the things that she was getting into. But I could not understand the hype. I know people, I've talked to people who love this book, but most of them read this book when they were 12. So it's like, of course you loved the book when you were 12 because you were 12 and she was 12 for a good portion of this book too. So I get that. But as an adult, no. If you saw my last video, they were saying that The Coldest Winter Ever was the great granddaughter of Their Eyes Were Watching God. And even though I didn't finish the book, I don't agree. It was not the great granddaughter. I love some urban literature. Okay, love me some urban literature. I told myself that maybe if I got in a time machine and I went back to when I was 12, that I would like the story, but I'm trying to think about my 12-year-old self. I don't think I would have liked this story. Winter's priorities were all the way messed up, but honestly, that's a reflection of her parents. Because one thing that I noticed in these urban literature books, especially the ones from back in the day, the parents were never where they were supposed to be, never having the important conversations. Like, her mom called her a hooker in a joking manner because I guess her friends also called her a hooker too. That's just how they talk. See, it's little stuff like that. Like, in the moment she feel like, hee, my mom, my friend. And her mom don't see nothing wrong with it, but she's not thinking about the impact of using words like that. Your daughter out here doing all types of stuff. I'm gonna put a little spoiler alert if you've never read the book, but I feel like everybody and their mama read the book except for me. This girl is like 13 with a sugar daddy. Her mama and her daddy don't know. Her mama too busy running her daddy money up, and her daddy too busy in the streets doing what he do. And then on top of that, one minute she calling her dad Pops, then she calling him by his name, Santiago. And I'm like, okay, which one is it? Is it Pops or is it Santiago? I had to go back a few times just to clarify that they were the same person. And she also was describing her daddy as sexy. She mentioned that he was sexy a few times. And I'm just like, that is a little questionable. Why is she calling him that? It's one thing to say like, yes, my father is an attractive man. He's handsome. But the use of the word sexy and knowing, and then she also like alluded to him knowing that he be putting it down for her mom because her mom's a bad bitch. Like, I'm just, no. It's not my cup of tea. Maybe if I would have read it a few years ago when I had a higher tolerance for urban fiction and its shortcomings, I would be like, oh yeah, this is okay. It was not. She was pissing me off. She was giving me a headache. So I had to DNF that. Don't recommend that book to me or any other Sister Soldier book to me. Not taking any shots at her writing, but I was not feeling that book. It was less about the writing and more about like the characters and how they interacted with each other. Just no. No ma'am, not for me. But if you like that book, hey, more power to you. I don't like it. As a recap, I ended up reading 11 books for the month of March. I had 1 DNF and 4 favorites. For the month of April, I do have a goal of starting a reading journal. I do use Storygraph and Goodreads to keep track of my reading stats, but I feel like Storygraph can be a little inaccurate, and Goodreads is okay, but the website is buggy. It's always been buggy. And honestly, I think I want to get into manually tracking my reads and also just being able to do like a full flip through on how I felt about things as opposed to just going back and looking where I read a book and put a star rating, because I don't always write reviews on the books I read unless they really move me to say something. And I also have a friend who does scrapbooking, and she sent me a video about a reading journal and she was like, you should try this. And I'm like, you know what? I should. So for the month of April, I am actually going to start my own reading journal. So maybe in the future, when we have more reading wrap-ups this year, it'll be more so a flip through of my reading journal or just a different format from this video and my previous reading wrap-up video. So things will change as time goes on, but I'm super excited for that. If you have any tips for reading journals or things to add to your reading journals, feel free to drop that in the comment section below. Before I sign off, I do have an exit ticket for y'all. And this is just for the people who made it all the way to the end of the video. Now, when I make any type of bookish or reading related video, I try to add a question at the end just to start up some discussion. And people do comment on the videos, but y'all don't be answering the question. So it just has me feeling like, dang, like, are you getting to the end? But I kind of know you're getting to the end because you're talking about some things that I talked about in the end, but you're not answering my question. So if you made it this far, please do me a favor and answer these 2 exit ticket questions. If we were in class, you wouldn't be able to leave my class because you're not doing your exit ticket. And if you late for your other class, then oh well. Do your work. But anyway, your 2 questions for today. Number 1, have you read any of the books that I mentioned in this video? And number 2, what are your favorite and least favorite books that you've read so far this year? If you made it this far in the video, I just want to take the time out to thank you for your time and attention, because you could be anywhere else doing anything else, but instead you're right here with me discussing my March reading wrap up, and I sincerely appreciate you for that. I will catch you in the next one.